Well, it has been a while since I have posted to this channel, 4 or 5 months or so. I believe the last video I did had to do with WrestleMania 41 and how much I wasn't really a big fan of that show. Since then, I've been MIA, but life has been busy. Life's been a little crazy. We were in Las Vegas with the in-laws for a little bit for the birth of our second child and getting all the help with that. We are back in Maryland now, I am happy to say, and things are going quite well for me and my family, which is great and fantastic. But I'm going to try and get back to semi-regular video production moving forward, but we shall see how that works out. A couple of little things before I get into the major topics. Godzilla the Monster Fight Record, the second edition. I'm still working on it. I hope to have it out by the end of the year. Making some updates, making some changes, and I'm working on one thing in particular to see if I can, it'll help me improve the book. I don't want to say what it is in case it doesn't come to be, but it is being worked on, and hopefully it comes out soon. So I'll keep you guys posted when those updates become available. And also, my New York Giants still suck. As last Sunday's game definitely showed. I don't know. I felt like we had 5 or 6 chances to win that game, but at the same time, I feel like the Cowboys were just toying with us and they could have won that game at any moment. But maybe I'm just a jaded Giants fan. I don't know. But fortunately, I have my 2 beautiful daughters to keep me happy and keep me from being too upset about football. But it's still very disappointing to see what my Giants have become. So, and this is all a preamble to a much more awkward, much more long-winded, much more I guess emotional video that I didn't intend to be kind of heavy and emotional, but things kept happening, and the real world beckons for me to talk about some of this stuff. Originally, I'd been planning on getting this video out for a couple of weeks, and it just kept getting pushed back, what with everything that moved back to Maryland and everything else, but I have the time now, and this should probably be like 5 or 6 different videos, but I'm playing catch up, and I'm just going to knock everything out. There will be a description with or there will be a table of contents with a description with time code, so you can skip to whatever topic you want me to talk about. There is going to be a lot of wrestling talk, of course. That is the major focus of this channel. There's also going to be some heavy political talking, which I do not typically do on this channel. Not something I'm fond of doing, but things need to be said, most unfortunately. So a lot of big things have happened, especially in the last month and a half. That I'm just going to give my 2 cents on, get it out of the way, and then moving forward, I can go back to having fun. But right now, things are not very fun in the real world. Well, it kind of started with the subway stabbing, but I'll get into that in a little bit. But really, things really got kicked into high gear in the last week. Has been very, very uncomfortable, to say the least, with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And no, I don't have any problem calling it an assassination. That's exactly what it was. Very tragic, very sad, should never, ever happen in this country. For a country that's founded on freedom of speech and, has freedom of speech as our First Amendment in our Constitution, as a pillar of what we are supposed to be as a society, to have somebody brutally, violently, senselessly murdered, assassinated, simply for speaking his own political views, regardless of what, end of the political spectrum you fall on, is very disheartening, very sad, should never happen in this country. We're supposed to be better than that. And unfortunately, this is something I kind of felt was coming. It's like, it's going to happen at some point. And unfortunately, it happened to Charlie Kirk. Now, I'm and politically, I've described myself on this channel as, I hate Republicans, but I really, really hate Democrats, and I think that intensified during COVID, where it's I'm still very upset about a lot of the stuff that happened during COVID, and they're trying to sweep it all under the rug and pretend like it never happened, and I'm like, yeah, no, the internet is forever, and we have the receipts, and I'm never going to forget all the crap that you all pulled for those 2-3 years. You can try and make us forget it, but some of that's going to be fueling some of this anger as well, but I would not describe myself as a Republican. Some people have described me as like a Goldwater Republican. That's probably, if you have to label me as anything, that would probably be the best way to do it. I've been called a libertarian in the past, but I don't like the Libertarian Party or how they conduct themselves, so I really don't have a home politically. I'm just like a staunch independent. I am what I am, and if I ever found anybody who completely agreed with me 100% on politics, I would assume that somebody out there somewhere probably perfected human cloning, because there aren't many, to say the least. So it's so that's kind of the perspective that I'm coming from here. I'm a staunch free speech absolutist, which is going to be a major part of what I'm about to say here with a lot of this. And when you look at like the right wing element of commentary and like on the internet and things like that, I didn't know Charlie Kirk. I knew of him. I was aware of him. I'd seen his videos before. I saw the South Park parody. Thought it was funny. I understand pulling the episode after what happened, but I hope that's not a permanent thing, because I think Charlie Kirk himself even seemed to enjoy being lampooned on South Park. I mean, when you're lampooned on South Park, that's a sign that you made it, right? Like, so I hope that the pulling of that episode is not a permanent thing. It's just things are a little hot right now. Things are a little sensitive. Let's just kind of keep this one out of the public consciousness for a while. It's kind of like when 9/11 happened, and I'm a big Godzilla fan, big I got the shirt on, big Godzilla fan, but for a few months after 9/11, it's like, Godzilla movies, even though it's completely unrelated, don't really feel like escapism right now. So it's like, I'll come back, give me a few months, I'll feel better, and I'll come back to you, big guy. But for right now, it's like, I'm kind of okay not seeing that right now. But complete sidebar, doesn't really matter. When you look at kind of the right wing element of like commentators and things like that, like the Matt Walshes, the Ben Shapiro's, Steven Crowder's, I find most of them obnoxious and grifty, and not really my cup of tea. I think Walsh is like the anti-Joe Pera, where it's like he's projecting like he's a 55-year-old man, but like a grump who's like, I don't like video games, all you youngins. And I think he's younger than me. It's like, okay, old man, whatever. And I'm going to bring up Walsh again later. Ben Shapiro, most of the Daily Wire people I find obnoxious. Steven Crowder, I find extremely obnoxious. A lot of those guys. And on the left wing, kind of the same thing. Like Destiny, I think, is an abrasive asshole. I think Hassan Piker is an abrasive asshole. And I don't like a lot of these people. There's a lot of grifting and, all sorts of things going on in those circles to kind of, go extreme and say like the most extreme things to get money, get clicks, get views, get attention. And it's feeding into a political climate that I'm not particularly fond of, where sensationalism and extremism and being as boisterous as possible is kind of like the name of the game, and using extreme terminology to describe the other side. And it's like, man, I long for the days, like I remember like the tail end of when the news was kind of boring, and I was 5 years old. I'm like, Mom, this is boring. And like, we need to go back to having boring news. You want a culture shock? Go watch election coverage from the Reagan years. Aside from the fact that like those elections were complete landslides, like the coverage of them is so dry, and it's like, this is weirdly refreshing to watch this. When you look at like how it's covered now, where it almost has as much legitimacy as the WWE. It's like night and day. It's kind of pathetic. But yeah, so a lot of these political talking head types, I'm aware of them. I see their stuff from time to time just to kind of, stay in tune with what's going on. But I don't like a whole lot of them. And Charlie Kirk, I look at him and it was like, he was like the most milquetoast one. Like, he was like the guy that just went to college campuses and talked to people. And like, what in the world? Like, he's an extremist? Really? He's a firebrand? I didn't think so. Like, based on everything I've seen. And after the assassination, I went up and looked up a lot of his stuff to find anything that was like super inflammatory that would even, and nothing would justify what happened. I don't care what he said, but I looked it up and I'm like, I saw nothing that would even disagree with him on certain things, absolutely, but nothing that would anger me to the point where I could understand somebody wanting to shoot him. And you look at some extreme, like an Alex Jones type. I would never support Alex Jones being assassinated. I actually kind of like Alex Jones because he's a fucking cartoon character, but he's hilarious. I mean, he's wildly entertaining. Cenk Uygur would be like the left-wing equivalent of that, where it's like they're so cartoonish and funny. How can you be mad at them? That the Cenk Uygur like bestiality clip, I still think is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Um, but in any case, like those guys, like those are firebrands that are screaming from the pulpit, this, that, and the other, la 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 la. I could see them getting people riled up and mad to where potentially want to harm them to some degree. And even then, like I would say, like assassinating them is so beyond the pale over words. And again, something that should not happen in a country where we value freedom of speech, where we value a discussion and the marketplace of ideas. That's the term I keep hearing, the marketplace of ideas. And I saw absolutely nothing from Charlie Kirk that would lead me to believe that he in any way deserved what happened to him. Nobody deserved, like, for you to deserve a public execution like that. And I saw the uncensored video because it was floating around Twitter like minutes after it happened. And I knew he was dead when I saw the shot. I was like, yep, that's too much blood, vital area. Like he's not coming back from that. And I was just like, this should not be happening in this country for a guy who just wanted to go to college campuses and talk. And you look at that content, I typically have a problem with that kind of, that like man on the street or debate me bro type of content, because I can see how it can be cherry picked, where like the left wing equivalent of that would be like leftist goes to a gun show with a microphone and a camera, interviews 50 people, and he finds like the 4 or 5 hayseeds that are like, I just plain don't like black people, and those are the ones that get highlighted in the compilation. Again, very cherry picky, and you can do that, and it's hey, it makes for better content, right? It's like nobody wants to have the boring conversation. I like boring conversations because that's more down to earth and normal, but people like the more extreme. Social media, TikTokification of our generation. It's got to be over the top and wild. So there's a confirmation bias aspect to it, but there's also like it makes better content aspect to it. And the right wing equivalent of that would be, let's say, like Charlie Kirk. Like he goes to a college campus, talks to 30 kids, and his content on YouTube will pick out maybe the 3 or 4 blue-haired septum piercing ones. It's like, gee, I wonder what their big brain takes are going to be. It's like you see somebody with that getup, you know exactly what they're going to say and what their takes are going to be. So I can see how that content can be cherry picked. I'm not saying Charlie Kirk did that. I'm just saying I see potential for it in that style of content. But even with that issue, I saw nothing from Charlie Kirk. He was the milquetoast one. He was the nice one. He was the calm one that's just like, hey, bro, let's talk. And which is what we should have in this country. That's completely and utterly normal. And I've seen it growing for years now, like possibly over a decade, where like the language of like words are violence, which to me is very dystopian to say things like that. Words are violence. Words can be dehumanizing and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. The stuff that we've heard ad nauseum, particularly from one side. And I'm like, this is a problem because you're going to start controlling speech. And I've seen censorship and cancel culture and other things like that run rampant over the last, again, decade plus. And it's a problem. And it's one that I have a major, major problem with because I'm a big free speech advocate. It's like we need to be able to say things even if they're uncomfortable, even if they're offensive. And these are things that I really, really just do not particularly care for when any kind of censoring of free speech. And I saw this stuff growing. So when I heard what happened to Charlie Kirk, it was my sister who texted me. I was kind of like, I was sad. I was shocked. But I was not, shock's probably not the word. I was kind of like, I knew something like this was going to happen. I just knew it because it's like, it's become unfortunately like a growing trend where it's like, the two sides and one side in particular is just worked so hard to dehumanize the other to such a degree. They're all Nazis. They're all racist. They're all this, that, and the other, that I knew like it was going to get to this point. And hey, last year, Donald Trump was almost assassinated. Like, it's like, it's becoming very, very bad out there right now. And this is the fact that we have like a death resulting from this now, that's going to make things a lot worse. And we're already starting to see the results of it, because I've talked to people in my life. I've talked to independents who have just out of the blue, well, not out of the blue, it's because of what happened, they're Republicans now. And I asked them why, and they're like, because fuck them, that's why. And it's like, oh, wow, okay. I've also talked to, conservatives that I know in my life, and they've said, look, dude, like before it was like before it was like, we think they're stupid. Now, after the last week, we think they're demon people. We think they're like evil based on how they reacted to Charlie Kirk's death. And that's the main motivation for me to talk about this and try to make sense out of all of this, because when the shooting first happened, I was sitting there and like, I hope to God that this is like a Son of Sam shooting, where it's like he's a guy that's a crazy guy whose dog told him to do it or something crazy. But in the back of my mind, I knew, knowing who Charlie Kirk was, I was like, it's probably politically motivated. And sure enough, it was politically motivated. And it's even worse because it came from a right-wing family who fell away from what his parents believe and became like a full-on leftists, and that's going to open up all kinds of discussions that lefties aren't going to want to have, where it's like universities are brainwashing factories, online resources like Reddit and Discord are brainwashing factories. What's going on here? And it's going to create a lot of uncomfortable conversations that before it's like, oh no, they're not. They're just learning who they really are, when it's like, this guy probably wouldn't have gone down this path had he not gotten access to certain things. So these are discussions that are going to be had, so get ready for it. And but when I saw the immediate response to Charlie Kirk's death, and not so much from like liberal talking heads, because Destiny, I saw that clip of him arguing with Anna Kasparian, which was telling. It's like, I want to believe that he doesn't mean half of what he says, and he's just a rage baity asshole that's trying to get clicks. You can't honestly believe that. I want to believe that you're a callous asshole, not like an actual soulless monster. But I guess you're soulless either way. But in any case, most of like the Stephen Colberts and Gavin Newsoms and things like that, they said the right things. Whether they meant it or not doesn't. They know they don't want this heat on them. This is basically my point. It's like, look, you don't want this. You don't want any of this. And they knew the right things to say. And of course, I'm going to talk about Jimmy Kimmel in a little bit, but but then you have that like online reaction from a lot of like the most extreme versions of the left, the people that are the ones who are championing this as some kind of victory for their side and celebrating that Charlie Kirk is dead, and doing all this other stuff, when this is like such a blow to America in my eyes to have something like this happen. And yeah, look, I get it. Tragedies happen every day. There's a lot of sad stuff that really happens. But when a school shooting happens, most people don't jump up and cheer when the children get shot. This is something completely different. This is illiberal to me, and completely a complete antithesis to what America is supposed to be about, where you're supposed to be able to go out into a public forum and say whatever the hell you want, regardless of who agrees with you or not. And to be shot over that is extremely disturbing and extremely disheartening. And the fact that they were celebrating it, and I saw it all online. I saw the videos, I saw the tweets, I saw the Blue Sky posts. It's all there, and it's like, this is how you want to look. I mean, politics is an optics game, and that left is losing the optics game. And look, again, I'm not trying to paint everybody on the left as belonging to that, but I warned years ago that you were cultivating, and again, it's the media ramping up the dialogue and ramping up like the extreme rhetoric, and cultivating these people and bringing them in and letting them be the loudest voice in the room and letting them get their way all the time. And it's like, yeah, it's all fun and games when you're winning elections and you're winning the culture. When that Overton window switches and you're no longer empowering, you're left with these lunatics, and they start getting more and more and more and more and more and more extreme, and you start seeing stuff like this, that stink rubs off on you. And it makes your entire side look bad. And this has been an optics nightmare for the left. And it's all because you had a bunch of people who, and again, it was like, this is even before the shooter's motives were brought out. And it got to a point where it almost didn't matter. It's like, you all are dancing on the man's grave that hasn't even been dug yet. And it's disgusting. It's horrifying. to see something like this happen. A guy who, at the end of the day, all he did was talk, bro, and that's it. And he had a wife, children, and I heard stories coming out of that where they were present, and his daughter heard the shot and tried to run up on stage to get to daddy, which hit me because I'm a father and I understand that. And it's very upsetting to see that kind of reaction. Like where like we abandon our humanity. And I've been talking about it for a long time where, politics has kind of morphed into this weird mix of religion and team sports where it's like we have to make sure that the other side doesn't win and we have to have our own dogma and stick true to all of our dogma. And I've talked about Donald Trump in the past where he's like the Frankenstein monster of the left's own creation. That's the whole other thing with the left. They've created so many of their own enemies, including Charlie Kirk. I saw a comment the other day where it's like, well, he was winning white men over to their cause. He was winning young white men over. He was a danger for that. And, because the younger generations of men are skewing Republican. And I was like, I heard for years, like a pretty loud and proud unified voice that the Democrat Party just straight up and like the left were okay leaving white men in the dust. Like I remember the bear memes. I remember all that rhetoric. I remember the Gillette commercial. I remember all of that. So again, the internet's forever and we have the receipts. So if anybody pushed young white, and look, I'm 40 years old. I am who I am. Like, I don't care who likes me. I don't care who doesn't like me. But if you're a 15-year-old white male and you grow up in a culture that's demonizing you and you don't understand why, you're going to go to people who try to say, hey, you're not evil. You drove them to the Charlie Kirks and the Donald Trumps. And again, like Donald Trump is the Frankenstein monster of their own creation. And they threw every banana peel in front of themselves to help him win twice. Bill Maher had a line. I'm going to reference Bill Maher later, but he had a line, to his woke friends on the left. He was like, look, we both voted for the same woman. You're the reason she lost, which I think is an oversimplification. There's other factors at play. But generally, yeah, like the optics of that kind of extreme leftism have soured greatly. And people have had it. I have seen so many comments out there. It's like, all right, because you danced on the grave. One of your own killed Charlie Kirk. We know that at this point pretty definitively now. One of your own killed him, and you're dancing on his grave. He was the nice one. He was the calm one. He was the voice that you want in a public forum because he's the one that invited people to speak. And now you have a bunch of right-wingers who are saying, all right, talk over. Because you have sent the message loud and clear that you want anybody right of Stalin to be dead. That is that vocal, psychotic element of the left has made your entire side look bad. And I remember hearing a comment years ago. I forget who said it. I apologize. But I would like to give credit where credit is due. But I remember hearing a comment years ago, like a decade ago, that the left has become a morbid death cult. And when I see things like this, and I see things like the subway stabbing and how they ran defense of the schizophrenic murderer, and how they felt like they had to defend him because, again, it's that whole like team sports religion mindset where it's like, we can't let the right get a win on this. And it's like, an innocent woman just got murdered on a subway. What are you talking about? Like, what are we even talking about here? They rationalize, they over-intellectualize everything when it's like, hey, how about the guy who was, detained like 14 times, I think it was, whose own mother said he should have been committed, who was diagnosed as schizophrenic. Maybe he shouldn't have been out roaming the streets free. Maybe the criminal justice system, maybe some of these policies failed. I would have more respect for you if you just admitted that the damn policies failed. Let's work to fix it. By the way, the victim's name was Irina Zarutska. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I feel like we should know her name. Horrible, senseless, awful crime that kind of set the tone for everything else that's been going on in the last week. And it's the media coverage of that was disgusting. And, again, I like, you don't hate the media enough. You really, really don't. When you look at how they cover things and how they report things, you do not hate them enough. Like, it's not possible to hate them enough because they always sink lower. And to feel like they have to kind of like run defense for this guy because he's, the racial element and he's on their side, which is like, no, absolutely fucking not. This should have never happened. This was completely senseless. And call me crazy, but I don't think a violent schizophrenic, whose own mother, based on, if the article I read is correct, his own mother said he should have been committed, should be out roaming the subways and being allowed to do what he did. Like, how does something like that slip through the cracks? That's a failure. That's a problem. And it needs to be addressed without fear of the other side winning. That's the thing that pisses me off. It's like, fix the damn problem. I don't care whose side wins. Fix the damn problem. Because that's what your focus needs to be. And then God, what's his name? The Luigi guy, the terrorism charge got dropped. And they're out celebrating. And they're all like, yeah, this is great. And I'm like, and look, I have no love of big pharma. Again, COVID pissed me off like you wouldn't believe. And I could do it a whole other rant about how I will never forgive and forget the stuff that happened during COVID. But, I have no love of big pharma. I have no love of insurance companies. I have no love of CEOs. I am not in favor of people being gunned down in the middle of the streets. That is the sign of a rotting society. And yeah, this guy should spend the rest of his life in jail. Plain and simple. And that you would cheer like he's the flimsy terrorism charge. Like, trust me, he's not going anywhere. The murder charge is going to stick. But I see you all celebrating this, and it's like celebrating Charlie Kirk. So you run defense of a murderer, two murderers, but celebrate when Charlie Kirk, who did nothing to anybody. There are policyholders, there are legislators in office right now who have done more damage to this country than anything that Charlie Kirk ever said or did. How dare you? It's imply that he somehow was worse than any of them. Again, like, COVID, like, I have a laundry list of people, and even those people, I would not say that they deserve to be gunned down in the middle of the streets. They deserve to be voted out of office and in some cases possibly prosecuted and arrested for what they did. But, and I keep hearing the whole argument about, well, what if it was a left-winger who got shot and killed? Well, I mean, that's not happening. There's a pattern developing, unfortunately. But if it was a Hassan Piker or a Destiny that got shot in public, or Cenk Uygur, to use a less extreme example, a less annoying example, I would be like, that's horrible. It shouldn't happen. It's illiberal. It's against the ideals of America. This is absolutely terrifying and sad and depressing. And, my deepest condolences to his family and friends, because this should not happen. It should not happen. We are supposed to be better than this. And, man, the left really took some L's here, with the optics war, and they have pissed off so many people. And now you're seeing the effects of it with people getting fired for dancing on Charlie Kirk's grave, and Jimmy Kimmel getting, I think it was indefinitely suspended, probably canceled last night, right before I filmed this. And I mean, my take on it, long term, I don't agree with it. I'm a big free speech absolutist. I saw Matt Walsh's comments on it, disagreed with him. I really get bothered when they say, look, there's freedom of speech, and then there's hate speech. And when they start doing that dichotomy thing, like, no, there is freedom of speech, Matt. I don't care. I saw Pam Bondi's comments, and I'm like, no, I do not agree with you. And it's terrifying to hear the Attorney General say something like that there's a difference between freedom of speech and blah, 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 and all that other stuff. And I don't agree with it. I don't subscribe to it at all. I am a big free speech absolutist in all of this. So, long term, I disagree with it. I think a lot of people, it feels good in the moment to enact something and do something, and they don't realize that it's going to get turned on them, very much like it's getting turned on the left right now, because they were the ones that set the rules for cancel culture. They're the ones that set the rules for all of this. You say a meanie pants word on Twitter and you should get fired. Well, guess what? Now it's getting turned on you, and this is the other element of this. It's like, if you honestly, and me as a free speech absolutist who just said I don't agree with the practice, if you expect me to reach down and say, this is wrong and defend you, you are barking up the wrong tree, because I have watched you people for years cancel people, get people filed. Again, you made these rules. You set this standard, and I warned you years ago that it's going to get turned on you and you're not going to like it. And guess what? Now it's getting turned on you and you don't like it. And it's like, oh, Jimmy Kimmel. Well, what about Gina Carano and that nonsense? That was complete and utter bullshit. And what about that? And I hate whataboutism, but it's like, y'all didn't care then. Y'all didn't care with any of that. And now that's like, you've hit so many raw nerves and you pissed everybody off, and now people are out for blood. I saw some cases quite literally. I saw a video of, there was like a memorial thing for Charlie Kirk, and some idiot on a scooter was rolling around like taunting them with a megaphone, and they dragged him off the scooter and roughed him up. And it's like, dude, people have had it with you. They're done being nice. And I, I'm not saying it's right. I fully understand that. It makes perfect sense. It's like, at this point, like, look, you just sent, again, you send the message loud and clear. It's like, I hope you all die. And it's like, okay, well, gloves off now, buddy. I saw Razor Fist made a couple comments about how, like, we're done indulging you. And it's like, again, not saying it's right. I'm just saying the table's been set and you all made this bed, and now it's time to lie in it. And things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. And it's very, very unfortunate that something like this would happen. And again, at the end of the day, this was a very tragic event that should have never, ever happened. And, obviously my deepest condolences go to Charlie Kirk and his family. Like, 2 young kids, a wife, should have never happened. Oh, all over words. Unbelievable. And I'm going to leave with this. I mentioned Bill Maher earlier, and this is kind of like, again, the foundation of who I am politically. I would say it probably started when I was about 12 years old, when Bill Maher had a show, I believe, on ABC. I could be wrong. It's the same show where he did the thing on wrestling and Roddy Piper pulled his pants down to show off a scar and all the, the scars of the wrestling wars that he'd had, to show that it's like, dude, we do get hurt, which is a great clip, by the way. But Sting's facial reaction is hilarious. But I think it was that same show, not the same episode, but that same show. And in one episode, Bill Maher talked about mentally challenged children. I won't use the dreaded R word because I don't want to get kicked off YouTube. But, and this is before YouTube, this before things went viral or things like that, but it made the clip made the rounds. It got reported on, and it got back to me as someone with 2 older brothers, one with autism and one with Down syndrome, who is no longer with us. This was something that hit home to me, to watch him talk about mentally challenged children and compared them to dogs, which was very uncomfortable for the rest of the panel, and said some very inflammatory comments, some that comments that people would say would be very dehumanizing, and again, words of violence and whatever, and all of that nonsense. But I remember seeing the clip, again, 12 years old. I was upset. I was offended. And I was like, man, what a jackass that guy is. What a piece of shit Bill Maher is. So, like, I had said every name in the book. But then I was asked by someone, do you think he should be taken off the air? And I thought about it, and I said no. I said absolutely not, because he should be able to say what he wants to say. And as long as I have the right to say you're wrong, as long as I have the right to refute him and give my opinions, as long as I'm allowed to insult him and call him a douchebag, I can live with that. And, again, a lot of this rhetoric that's popped up in recent years of how words are violence, and it's freedom of speech, not freedom of consequences, which that is dystopian as hell, and I hate it. But you hear those things, And I learned at 12 years old, you know what? Sticks and stones don't break my bones. I can live with a guy saying some meanie pants words that hurt because of my family life. It hurt, but you get over it. It's okay. And you know what? If I ever met Bill Maher, and Bill Maher doesn't know me from a hole in the wall, but if I ever met him, I feel like I owe him some gratitude for that because it forced me to mature a little bit and to think through things and to have principles. I'm sure if we spoke, we would agree on almost nothing. But one thing I do, and I would even go as far to say I still don't like Bill Maher, but I agree with him on the whole, like, hey, let's just talk. Hey, people should be able to have opinions. I think that's something we have common ground on, and we could be able to shake hands and have a beer over. And that's the way it should be. And that's the type of thing that Charlie Kirk was trying to achieve, at least on the surface, that's what it looked like. And a bunch of fringe, like a large number of fringe lunatic idiots decided to dance on his grave and stoke a flame that it's gonna burn you, and it's already burning you. And it's impossible for me to feel sorry for you. And again, as a free speech absolutist who would never support somebody getting fired over things that they said, who would never support a show getting canceled over saying the wrong things. It's like you dug your own grave here, and I'm like Rorschach, like you reach up and say save us, and I'm like, absolutely not, pal. You dug this grave, you live in it, you dig yourself out. Like these are the rules that you set as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, that's my rant. It's a long one. I apologize. Very uncomfortable. Not the usual content that I like to make, but something needed to be said. It's horrible. It's sad. It's depressing to see something like this happen in our country. Not just the event itself, but the reaction to it. And it's we need to be better. Now let's move away from the world of politics and current events and other nonsense like that and move it back into the world of professional wrestling, which unfortunately also carries more sadness. Again, a lot of topics I wanted to get out of the way in this video just to kind of move past it all and then go back to having fun. So hopefully we can do that in the next couple of weeks. But one other thing that I wanted to talk about was the passing of Hulk Hogan, which happened back in August, and didn't get a chance to make a video about it. And actually, Hogan's passing and a tribute to Hogan was kind of supposed to be the main thing in this video, but obviously things happened, and things got combined and meshed together. But yeah, Hulk Hogan's passing was one that was very, even at his age, 72 in wrestling years is like 105, but it's still like, it's weird not having him around because he's always been there. He's just always been this icon that served as like the avatar of professional wrestling. And what I'm about to do here, it's like, I'm not going to talk about any of the controversies or scandals or anything like that. Not the goal of this. The goal of this is to pay tribute to one of the greatest icons in wrestling history, and one that meant a lot to me as a young fan. And I wanted to focus on the positives of Hogan's career as a professional wrestler, and what he meant to the business and what he meant to my family in particular. Hulk Hogan was my first favorite wrestler. There's no getting around that. He was my gateway into the world of professional wrestling. Now, I have credited Sting as being the one who kind of exposed me to the wider world of wrestling. It's like, oh, there's wrestling outside of WWF. And he was my first favorite wrestler outside of the WWF system, and that led to me finding WCW and NWA and ECW and New Japan and getting me on that whole cycle. It started with Sting, but as far as the WWE goes, Hulk Hogan was my first exposure to professional wrestling and was that gateway into the wacky world that we know of with professional wrestling. And, it's this death hits a little differently. Again, I know as wrestling fans, we should probably be used to losing our heroes, but there have been a lot of wrestling deaths that have hit me emotionally. Piper's I was very upset by that. Savage's death upset me. Dusty, I didn't take well. Gorilla, I remember I was a teenager when Gorilla Monsoon passed. I was very upset. Bobby Heenan was one. Eddie Guerrero, Owen Hart. I mean, God, I was watching the pay-per-view that night. You could have punched me in the face. I wouldn't have felt a thing. Bray Wyatt's passing was very sad. Well, there was the Benoit tragedy, which was awful and upsetting for completely different reasons. But a lot of wrestling deaths have really, really hit me hard. Eddie Guerrero, another one, but I think I mentioned it, but whatever. This one hits a little bit differently because it's kind of a different thing. Not necessarily more tragic, but there's an element to Hogan where losing him almost feels like I'm losing a part of myself, because when I was a young kid, I was very young. There were 5 fictional characters that I would say were kind of like my role models and were kind of the basis of the foundation of what is me, if that makes sense. Like my, role models and people I could look up to, again, fictional characters, but ones that could kind of give me like a standard to live up to and something positive to derive from what I was watching and learn lessons from it. Those 5 heroes were He-Man, Optimus Prime, Batman, Godzilla, which I admit is a weird one, but Godzilla had the greatest face turn in the history of cinema. Sorry, Darth Vader. But yeah, Godzilla was a hero to me. And number 5 was Hulk Hogan. And Hogan was a little bit different from all of them because he wasn't a cartoon character. He wasn't a man in a rubber suit. He wasn't on the pages of comic. Well, he was, but he wasn't strictly a comic book character. This was like, Hulk Hogan was like Superman existed in real life. And if you went to a show, you could reach out and touch him. Like, he felt like a real person, even though he was this over-the-top, boisterous character. More so than the other characters that I just listed. And, man, he was, I don't think a day went by in the entire time I lived in my parents' house where I didn't see Hulk Hogan's face or the Hulkamania logo or heard Real American playing somewhere. He was just this ever-present thing in the house, part of the family decor. I don't want to go as far to say that he was like a member of the family, because that's silly, but he was part of the decor. He was part of like the family personality. My brothers and I adored Hulk Hogan. We adored Hulk Hogan. It was something we bonded over. Watching the matches, watching the shows, collecting the VHS tapes, playing with the action figures, playing with the wrestling buddies, which I still say is one of the best marketing things that WWE ever did, were the wrestling buddies. Those were great. But it's Hogan was a really big part of my childhood. And again, you look at those 5 childhood heroes, the 2 main Godzilla suit actors are gone now, the Showa and Heisei era ones. John Irwin, the original voice of He-Man, is gone. Adam West, the original Batman's gone. Kevin Conroy, my favorite Batman's gone. Peter Cullen's still here. It's protect that man at all costs, please. But with Hogan gone, it's just another like kind of, part of my childhood that's no longer here. And it's that thing that kind of makes you realize your own mortality a little bit. But, I think back to that era. If you'd asked 4-year-old me, I was like, all right, who do you think are the top 5 stars in the WWF? I would have said Hogan, Warrior, Savage, Piper, Andre. And with Hogan's passing, all 5 of them are gone now. One of my favorite storylines in WWE history is the Mega Powers, the rise and fall of the Mega Powers. Hogan, Savage, and Elizabeth, all 3 of them are gone now. And it's one of those like weird, like, man, times are like, it really does pass you by, and it makes you realize like how much time has passed and what's gone now that wasn't there when you were a kid. And like I said, Hulk Hogan was always there. And I could sit here all day and talk about like Hulk Hogan's contributions, my favorite matches and feuds and moments, of which there are many. There are many, contrary to popular belief. He wasn't a good worker. And I heard a lot of young fans saying like, Cena was better, and Roman Reigns is better. And I'm like, you don't understand. It's kind of like the LeBron James, Michael Jordan conversation. We can talk stats and win-loss records and the championship games and all this other stuff, but really at the end of the day, LeBron is a very, very good basketball player, best in his era. Michael Jordan was a phenomenon who had such a positive impact on the culture that the crime rates in Chicago went down whenever he played. Him playing basketball had a positive influence on society. That's what Michael Jordan meant to basketball. And Hulk Hogan is that guy for wrestling, very much like Babe Ruth for baseball, Wayne Gretzky for hockey. Football, there's a few. I don't think there's a clear-cut number one in football, but there is with wrestling, like who is the face of professional wrestling? It's Hulk Hogan. Like I mean, there's nobody else. You can say Stone Cold Steve Austin, but I don't think Austin had the run that Hogan did. And if you want to talk about like, oh, who's the greatest of all time, the thing that I've always said as a point in Hogan's favor is that he did what nobody else did. He revolutionized the business twice. Once in the 80s with the Hulkamania run, and then again in the 90s when he turned heel with the NWO, which not only helped usher in like that whole like attitude of the late 90s, which, you know, Austin 316 was a huge part of that. ECW was kind of the starting point, the real like kind of genesis of it, and it made its way into the mainstream. But Hogan's heel turn, not only did it help usher in that whole attitude, it also won over a lot of lapsed fans because a lot of people were like, wait, Hulk Hogan's doing what? He's heel? Wait, what? Hogan's a bad guy now? What? And that won a lot of people over to WCW and really kicked off the Monday Night Wars. So if you want to make a case for Hogan being the greatest of all time, that's a pretty big point in his favor. I've also said, you know, I've said on this channel many times, star ratings are bullshit. But the real matches that you want to have if you're a wrestler, you want to have the matches that like are those point in time, where were you on that day when this happened? Something that is significant, well-built, satisfying payoff, and like feels like a point in history, like where were you when this happened? And I think Hulk Hogan probably has more of those than any wrestler in history. When you look at WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 3, the main event with Andre where he lost the title with the dual referee thing. I would throw Mania 5 up there. I would throw Mania 6 up there. Mania 18. The match on Nitro where he lost to Luger, the 100th episode, the match with Goldberg, which was one of the few times where wrestling television felt as big as WrestleMania. There's also the Dennis Rodman tag matches. I would throw Bash at the Beach 96 up there, even though he wasn't really an active participant in the match itself. That was obviously a major point in history. I would say maybe the cage match with Orndorff on Saturday Night's Main Event, which is probably the biggest match in Saturday Night's Main Event history. He's got a lot of those. The SummerSlam 89 tag match did huge numbers, was really big. Very successful. One of my favorite matches from my childhood, quite honestly. Like that's a match that makes me feel like a kid again whenever I watch it. It's so good. But Hogan has more of those like point in history, this is significant type of matches than probably anybody else. And look, you can think of like who your favorite wrestlers are. If they have like 5 of those, that's awesome. That's amazing. And Hogan's got like 20. And that kind of speaks to the legacy and the endurance of that character. And again, the longevity that he had in professional wrestling and what he meant to the business. And, you know, again, a popular thing that's worth talking about is like Mount Rushmores, which is a huge like topic of discussion that gets brought up a lot, like Mount Rushmore of this and Mount Rushmore of that. I mean, you're looking at greatest of all time. Undertaker actually had a list where he said it's Hogan, Flair, Austin, Andre, and I'm like, when you look at impact, influence, longevity, like, you know, all the things that really matter, I mean, I don't think you can have a much better foursome than that. He's pretty spot on. I mean, granted, my personal favorite Mount Rushmore probably a little different. It would be like, my personal favorite would be like Brett, Sting, Steamboat, and Savage. But again, it's personal taste and, you know, all-time, you know, biggest impact on wrestling is kind of a different thing. But yeah, if we're talking like Mount Rushmore of all-time greatest baby faces, I think Hogan would have to be on there somewhere. If we're talking all-time greatest heels, I think Hollywood Hogan would have to be on there somewhere. If we're talking about, I was actually talking to somebody the other day about what are the best title changes in television history. So the title changes that happen on TV, and I think I got my list to 5, and it was like Hogan Andre, Hogan Luger, Hogan Goldberg, Rock and Foley in 99, and I think I said one of the Money in the Bank title changes or something like that. And I was like, yeah, you look at and Hogan's in 3 of the 5. and he loses the title in all three of them, but still, it's like it really speaks to how big he is. I also did I remember doing one a little while ago, the Mount Rushmore of wrestling t-shirts. What would the Mount Rushmore of wrestling t-shirts be? Hulkamania, NWO, Austin 316, DX. Hogan has half that list. Again, he left a footprint and a mark on wrestling that will never be duplicated. And and I prefer to like remember the good times. Again, not all of it was peaches and cream, but when you're around as long as Hogan is, not everything's going to be great. But when he was on, man, like there was something magical about Hulkamania. And I did want to tell this story, again, bringing up my brother again, who had Down syndrome, no longer with us, little Andy. And again, he was a big Hulk Hogan fan. And he had his favorite wrestlers. I would say his number one all time was Undertaker. But Hogan was not far behind. Hogan was a very strong number two. And other favorites included Goldust, Kamala, Rob Van Dam, I love The Rock, Mick Foley. I'd say that's probably close to like his super, like his top favorites were those. I don't know why. I don't know why Kamala was one of his favorites, but he was. So Andy had very interesting taste. But in any case, we never got to see Hogan in person. Until 2005, we went to go see SummerSlam 2005 in DC, and I got tickets to that show knowing, even before they did the setup on TV, I knew that the main event of that show was going to be Hogan and Shawn. I'm like, I am not missing Hogan. Because I could see they were kind of setting it up a little bit with them as tag partners, and I was like, it's going to be Hogan Shawn at SummerSlam, and it's going to be in DC. I'm going because I want to get that off my bucket list that I saw Hogan live. And so we went, had a great time. Shawn's overselling did not ruin it for us. His temper tantrum did not ruin it for us. It was it was not apparent to the live crowd. It wasn't very obvious. Unfortunately, that match has kind of been marred by Shawn's whole deal. But it was the live experience was fantastic, and that's a memory I'll cherish forever. And looking back on it, and especially now that it was like that was the one time I got to see Hulk Hogan perform live, I'm like kind of glad he went over because I got to take part in the Hogan post-match celebration and the pose down and all of that stuff. So I got to have the full Hulk Hogan experience for that one and only time, and it was a very cherished memory. And speaking to just the kind of impact that Hulk Hogan had on my family and had on my brother in particular, we got him a Hulkamania hat at that show. And it had something on there like Running Wild since 1983 or something like that, which was appropriate because that was my brother's birth year. And 1983 was when Hogan went back to the WWF, like very end of the year, like December 83. So it's kind of like interesting that they coincided, but it's like it has Andy's birth year on it. We got to get it, right? It's perfect. And we all had a great time. It was a wonderful memory that, again, I will cherish forever. And then when my brother passed away, we buried him in the Hulk Hogan hat because it meant a lot to him and it meant a lot to us. So that's the kind of impact that Hulk Hogan had on me personally and my family and everything else. And like I said, he was something special, in the world of professional wrestling, and deserves all the accolades for having a once in a lifetime career that will never, ever, ever be duplicated, created a character that will never, ever be duplicated. And one last thing I will say, and I probably should have said this earlier, but what are you going to do? If you're a wrestler looking to get into professional wrestling and you want to be a really good babyface, there's a list of guys that I feel that would be beneficial to study tape on. I think Bret Hart is one. Excellent, because he's such a great technician, but he also knows how to play babyface he's not just a bland let me trade holds guy. He actually knows how to be a babyface in the ring and use his technical ability to enhance his babyfaceness. So I would look at Bret Hart. I would look at guys like the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton in particular. Really knows how to sell, face in trouble and things like that. You have Ricky Steamboat, who might be the most perfect baby face of all time, just perfectly good, perfectly likable, perfectly everything. You have Rey Mysterio, who's like perfectly built to be a babyface because of the moves he does and his size. Just kind of, he can't be anything else, right? He's got to be just the perfect babyface. So there's a list of guys I would look at. Dusty Rhodes is another one that should be looked at in that same light because it's like nobody could get a crowd on their side quite like Dusty. Sting is another one. If you want to really learn how to be a good babyface, though, it would benefit you to study Hulk Hogan like crazy, because one thing, and it's going back and watching the old stuff, you don't realize it as a kid, but when you go back and watch the old stuff with Hulk, like when he was in danger and he was getting beat up, his facial expression, it's so funny because he was famous for not selling, but he was actually a really good seller. And his facial expressions and the way he would appeal to the crowd, it's like, help me, maniacs, I need you. And he could get a crowd on his side like a pro. And that's the mark of a really, really good babyface. I remember the first time I watched Hogan Andre for Mania 3. It was a VHS compilation tape that was released in 1989. So this is, the match is already 2 years old at this point. I'm 4 years old. The match has already come and gone. I'm watching this match, and when he's in that bear hug spot, and he's got his arms up, and he's appealing to the crowd, like, look at him, give me strength, maniacs. And then when you cheer, he fights back and all of that other good stuff. It's like, that's the art of wrestling right there. That's that's what you do. And I remember as a kid, it's like, sure, Hulk, I'll yell and scream at you, even though this is a recording from 2 years ago, and what I'm doing right now has no bearing on anything, but yay! And when he fought back, he made you feel like the whole Hulk up routine, he made you feel like you were fighting back with him, like you were along with him for the ride. And at the end of the day with professional wrestling, what you need to do, it's not the moves, it's not whatever fancy thing you can come up with, you got to be able to connect with the audience and lead them on your journey, whatever it is, and connect them with your character, whatever it is. And Hulk Hogan did that better than most, and I think history reflects that perfectly. So that is my tribute to Hulk Hogan. Again, rest in peace, Hulk. You were one of the all-time greats, and thank you for everything. All right, now we go from that to even more unpleasantness, but this was a topic that just dominated wrestling discussion right after it happened. And again, I didn't get a chance to cover it while it was happening, but I will give my 2 cents on the Raja Jackson Syko Stu incident, which I think it was Jim Cornette who said it was the most watched indie match of all time, which might be the case, which is highly unfortunate. But basically, I don't know if I have anything to add to it that hasn't already been said, but yeah, this was horrible. And again, this is like a worse version, because I remember when the Travis Scott thing happened where he busted Cody's eardrum and everybody was all pissed off about that. It's like, why are we letting this outsider in here who is not smart enough to do what he needs to do to make this work? And again, bringing in outside people, it's worked very well for professional wrestling in the past. It's a thing that's got a track record of success. WrestleMania was built on the concept. Well, first of all, I don't consider Raja Jackson like a major name worth bringing in. He's the son of a famous MMA fighter. That's about the extent of it. So I don't even for a small level indie like this or wrestling school like this, I don't understand like where there's money to be made, including this kid, because I'd never heard of him until this all happened. And like, what outside I guess he was a streamer. He'll get like his 700 12-year-olds watching him, I guess, but nothing significant or worth investing in. But in any case, yeah, this is like a worst version of the Travis Scott incident, where you bring in this outsider who's not smart to the business at all, clearly, and the footage shows that, where he would get so pissed off over that beer can incident, which Syko Stu apologized for, not realizing that he wasn't a worker, and then got so ramped up and so worked up that it turned into the horrible situation that you saw play out in the ring, where and he was talking about it, all the footage is there. Like, I don't understand how he's not in jail yet. Like, I don't understand. Like, all the footage is right there. This was premeditated. It's assault. Some people have said he should get an attempted murder charge, which I'm hard pressed to fight that one. It was like, and then he goes in there and completely, flips the script. Syko Stu was out on the slam. That's the thing that amazed me when I saw the footage. I was like, he was already out. He could not defend himself at all. Like, and it was very violent, very bad, and a horrible thing that should never ever happen in the world of professional wrestling or MMA, because the MMA, like, refs are supposed to stop it, and this wasn't a sanctioned fight or anything. And then you look at, oh boy, this is one of those things where you look at it from all the different perspectives and everybody else that was in the ring. Everybody looked like a deer in the headlights, like referee, the wrestlers. Nobody looked like they knew what they needed to do. I think the only one who did the right thing was Doug the Epic Malo, I think his name was. He was the only one because he pulled Raja off a Stu. Like, I was like, will somebody go in there and help him? Because when I was watching it, I was like, is anybody going to try and break this up? Is anybody going to try and break this up? And he finally was able to get down to the ring and do it. But so he's the only one that gets a gold star in this mountain of shit. But it was, to see Syko Stu get completely victimized like that, gave up his body because he allowed Raja to slam him. And just to have that happen was just unbelievable. And I was like, again, you look at Raja's reaction to it and him storming out of the building and ranting and raving about, like, I've always wanted to beat up a pro wrestler, which that's a weird dream to have. Clearly has daddy issues, and he's like, I'm tired of being made a bitch of. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What is going on right now? And because I'm trying to think, because some big brain takes that were floating around where it's like, Syko Stu deserved it because of the stupid beer can stunt. I was like, well, number one, he apologized to it. Number two, if Syko Stu had come up to me mistaking me for a worker and put a beer can up against my head like that and then asked me, why aren't you selling? I'd be confused. What the fuck are you talking about? And then we'd talk it out and hash it out and we'd have a beer later. It's fine. The level of anger to where you would assault somebody to that degree, almost murder them. Like, it's a miracle that, and we don't know what kind of long-lasting, I still don't know to this point what kind of long-lasting damage Syko Stu is going to have from this, but it's a miracle it wasn't worse than it was, to see how violent the whole thing really was. And I'm sitting there like, how on earth how did he get out of the building? Because I'm thinking, and you look, in a lot of ways, the wrestling business has improved since the 80s for the health of the boys and the security of the boys and the women too. The talents are much better taken care of now than they were back then. And the vices that were there in the 80s aren't as prevalent, or they're not as prevalent today. I've heard people make fun of modern wrestlers. Oh, they just go to their hotel rooms and play video games. I'm like, that's better than, going out and snorting coke and getting into bar fights, probably. But, call me crazy, but a little bit better behaved. But then I see situations like this. I'm like, if this had happened in a locker room in the 1980s that includes the likes of like a Rick Rude or a Haku or the Road Warriors or legit tough guys like that, Raja would have never made it out of the building except in a cop car or an ambulance, along with Syko Stu. It would have gotten pretty bad. Again, I think Cornette made a comment. It's like, dude, nobody liked Tully, but if somebody beat the shit out of Tully like that, all the boys would have poured into the ring and just beat the ever-living shit. And, in the 90s, there were so many clips of fans jumping into the ring, and immediately the wrestlers jump on top of them and start wailing. And it's... that element of protecting the business that's clearly not there anymore. Now, look, I'm not saying go out there and start beating up people for the sake of it. It's just like, no, when somebody gets out of line, there a little self-enforcement in wrestling is not unwelcomed. And I don't know, like, too many guys in the business today are nerds and, like theater kids that just thought it was cool to get into wrestling. They're not like the enforcer types that would have, if not prevented this, would have at least made sure that something like this never happened again, shall we say. So, I don't know. It's just very eye-opening. And, of course, there was the whole WWE ID element to this, where that school lost lost that banner pretty quick. It was a very unfortunate black eye on professional wrestling. It shows how things can go really, really wrong if you don't handle things properly. And again, except for Doug the Epic Mallow, who absolutely 100% did the right thing, except for Syko Stu, who was, I don't care what Rob Van Dam or Mark Henry say, he was the victim in all of this. I saw nothing that would justify what Raja Jackson did in any known universe, but it's a situation where everybody looked bad, from bookers, promoters, that stupid idiot with the cowboy hat who was egging him on, all of it. Just everybody looked really, really bad in this, and it, again, makes wrestling look bad, makes MMA look bad. It was just bad all around. So, yeah, it's very unfortunate. Hopefully, something like this never happens again. Now that we've moved past most of the unpleasantness, we can get into the actual state of wrestling and what my current opinions are on WWE and AEW and everything else. Oh God, I kind of hate WWE right now. And this has been building all year. When you look at, and I kind of touched up on it at WrestleMania, but it's just been, for all the good that they were doing in the previous year and how well received WrestleMania 40 was. They've done a lot this year to really put a lot of people off with a lot of creative woes. It started, my first domino was the New Day heel turn, where it's like, okay, they got something here. They built up well to it. They got something, and they didn't do anything with it. And it's like, okay, that was kind of a waste of time. Then there was the Cena heel turn, which initially excited everybody. I think we can all say now that the Hogan heel turn was better. I know that was a debate that people were trying to start. It's like, no, Hogan's was better. In the grand scheme of things, Hogan's was better. No, because John Cena's heel turn turned out to be a complete waste of time, because they just turned him babyface right before SummerSlam and killed all of the heat for that match with Cody, where even if I was interested in watching it, because, Cody's like, I'm going to get revenge for WrestleMania and all this other stuff, they killed the heat. And it's like, well, okay, no, I don't care. It's like, okay. R-Truth's whole thing got wasted. Who cares? And it's all in, you've got, God, what else? My major problem with WWE is there's too much programming, because it feels like every time I turn around, there's some new show being announced, because they constantly have to piss in AEW's pool. And it's like, look, I get counter programming is like not uncommon in professional wrestling. I mean, back in the 80s, Survivor Series went up against Starrcade, and I think the Royal Rumble went up against Bunkhouse Stampede, and Clash of the Champions went up against Mania 4. And it's like, okay, here's the difference. I actually like both products back then, or at least I wasn't watching NWA at that point, but I would have liked both products. So if I'm getting excited for WrestleMania 4, it's like, oh my God, they did this whole thing where Andre stole the title and DiBiase stole the title, and we're going to have a tournament to determine a new champion. God, I hope Savage wins. But then you announce the show where it's like, oh, by the way, Sting might be Flair for the title. I'd be like, amazing. I would have been like that. And this is like, oh my God, another show? Ugh, because you have so many of them. I don't care. It's like, oh, but Brock Lesnar's back. It's like, yeah, he's going to work Cena. I've seen that match 9 million times. I don't care. AJ Lee is back. It's like, look, credit to AJ Lee. I've credited her in the past. When she was around and first came on the scene, she was the first woman in a dog's age that legitimately got over. And actually so much so that I criticized WWE for making her the GM. I mean, I'm sure she was fine with it because she got paid and didn't take bumps, but it's like, it felt like a misuse of her, because it's like, she's actually over. She should be having matches that people care about. And you're kind of missing an opportunity there. But I give AJ Lee credit for that, but she was never like a favorite of mine or a reason why I would tune in. So her return, yeah, okay, special moment, good for her. No knocking her. I'm not knocking her, but I'm not going to start watching WWE again just because she's back. And CM Punk, Jesus Christ, dude. That guy, he should no longer be called CM Punk. He should just be called Phil Brooks, because there's nothing punk about him anymore. He is a good boy. He's a good corporate boy. Man, he made all those comments about Hulk Hogan, and it's like, oh, you're as problematic as Hulk Hogan. But then when he died, who was there on the stage, center stage? It's like, oh, look who got his marching orders. Look who's being a good boy. Oh, look who's sucking that yeah, blood money dick now from Saudi Arabia. Look who loves Saudi Arabia. Hi, Punk, and more on Saudi Arabia in a minute. But it's yeah, you're not Punk anymore. It's like, oh yeah, I don't see any abortion T-shirts anymore. It's like, yeah, when it's a publicly traded company, they don't let you do that, do they? They don't let you do whatever you want. So it's like, I'm not trying to shit on CM Punk. I just found it hilarious that it's like, oh, Mr. Edgy Boy, like who says all the things that you're not supposed to say. Now he's a good little boy that stands on the stage when Hulk Hogan dies, and he's a good little boy that says Saudi Arabia is great when prior to this he didn't. And it's like, somebody got his marching orders and he knows what he's supposed to do. That's hilarious. But I digress. The God, what else is going on right now? There's that WWE Unreal show, which I didn't watch. I saw the 2 clips that were going around of the Tiffany Stratton Charlotte Flair thing, which I balked at because it was like, yeah, they're kind of hiding the whole fact that Charlotte kind of made that whole situation happen. It's like, oh, she's upset and Tiffany went off script. I'm like, yeah, this after a couple of weeks of Charlotte making her look like dog shit. Like, you know, I noticed that got taken out of the equation there. And there was also that clip of like Bruce Pritchard like browbeating and scaring the holy hell out of Chris Park and saying, "Oh, the match was overproduced. It was too long." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, dude, every match is overproduced now. What are you talking about? Like, what is it? Why are we torturing poor Chris? But yeah, to me, like the curtain's been pulled back so much already. I don't need to watch a whole show about it. I'm like, I'm good. And WWE is too much programming as it is. I do not care. They have NXT. They have, which is supposed to be like the developmental show. But then they have LFG, which is about developmenting guys, but also having that real element to show how WWE is run. But then you have WWE Unreal, which shows how WWE is run. And it's like, it's just redundancy on top of redundancy on top of redundancy. It's like, there's more Raws, more SmackDowns, more Saturday Night's main events, more this, more that, more PLEs, and going to be on ESPN now. And it's just exhausting. It is exhausting. I don't know how WWE fans watch it all. I really don't. Like, where do you find the time to watch it all? It's so exhausting. My favorite thing in WWE right now is the WWE Vault YouTube channel and the WCW YouTube channel. There is some great stuff on there. I heard they posted an Eddie Guerrero compilation. I am going to gladly watch that. They posted a 3-hour Sid compilation, and I was like, ooh, I will watch that. And I even criticized them because I was like, they didn't have some of the matches I would have wanted. It was more like his big WWE matches, but I would have liked, I don't know, the Beach Blast 93 main event. Then I realized, wait, let me check the WCW channel, see if they have Beach Blast 93. They did. They did. Those YouTube channels have me covered. And I get my WWE fix predominantly through those 2 YouTube channels because I do not give a crap about the current product at all. It is exhausting. It is bloated. It is overly corporate. It is awful. Absolutely awful. And this is all before the Saudi Arabia WrestleMania announcement, which I guess I'm missing WrestleMania that year because I don't like the Saudi shows. Again, I'm not trying to be political here. Anytime I've ever watched one of the Saudi shows, it's just a very awkward atmosphere. The matches typically don't do it for me. You've had some of the worst matches of all time at those Saudi shows. And it's like, I don't like it. And now it's like a WrestleMania is going to be in Saudi Arabia. And people are already speculating that this is like a prelude to the Saudi Arabian government owning WWE, which that's going to, if that happens, oh boy, that's going to change wrestling forever. But yeah, I mean, if they're gonna, heck, if I'm a London fan, I'm pissed, because it's like, if anybody deserved an international Mania first, it would have been London, and I've been saying that since SummerSlam '92, because they're typically a very excited crowd. They had a couple of great shows with AEW. SummerSlam '92 is a very fond memory of mine, and it's like, if any other country deserved a WrestleMania, it was them, and they kind of got shafted, and they sold out for that blood money, so what are you going to do? And it's like, yeah, if I'm AEW, I'm like, yeah, we're going to run a show that weekend. If they're gonna leave that void in America or somewhere else, if I'm Tony Khan, it's like, let's hold a super show and give them, it might not be WrestleMania, but they're not getting WrestleMania, so let's do that. And I would be fully in favor of that, quite honestly. And now, granted, and this is where I'm getting into AEW, I'm not exactly enamored with AEW right now because, again, I probably enjoy them more than WWE, but it's the same problems that I've been saying about AEW forever. The matches are too long. The shows are too long. I saw All In, which set the record for the longest pay-per-view in American pay-per-view history, which is like, guys, what are we doing? Why do they have to be so long like this? And I get it. They were trying to fuck with Saturday Night's Main Event, which, by the way, was the last WWE show I watched because I wanted to see Goldberg's retirement because I'm a WCW fan, and I wanted to, it's like, okay, this is going to be like the farewell to WCW, and it's a match we've never seen before in Gunther and Goldberg, which that's, again, to go back to what I was talking about with Cena and Lesnar, it's like, look, I've seen that match 800 times. I'm good. If you're a young fan, you've never seen it, fine, whatever, but I'm good. I don't need to see it. Goldberg Gunther, it's like, well, I've never seen that. And it's like, oh, it's Goldberg's retirement. Okay. But that left a sour taste in my mouth because they cut off his retirement speech. It's like, oh, you just can't get out of your own way. But and look, All In, I thought the three main events on that show came off really, really well. It's just, they were three really long matches at the end of a very, very long show that did not need to be that long. And that's a problem that AEW keeps going to. And I could forgive it if it was only 4 pay-per-views a year, but they keep adding to their pay-per-view calendar, which only makes the shows more bloated, more, less desirable. Like, it's like you get a belly full of it. And it's like, I'm good. I don't need to check out the new show. Now, granted, there's going to be WrestlePalooza and, what's the next one? I don't even remember what the next AEW show is, but it's All Out. And it's like, looking at the 2 cards, if I had to pick one, I'm probably going to go for All Out because at least it has matches I've never seen before, like Edge and FTR. That's an exciting match to me because big Edge and Christian fan, big FTR fan. I'm like, okay, that's kind of neat. I like that. Few too many multi-person matches. Has another ladder match. Yay, another multi-person ladder match. Hooray. It has Kyle Fletcher in the main event, which I do want to talk about that. I'll get to Kyle Fletcher in a minute. But so I'm not enamored with the All Out card either, but it's at least it has the FTR Edge and Christian match. I was like, that's something. Something's better than nothing. So there's and Darby Allin and Mox in the coffin match. I might want to check that out, although hopefully they don't do anything too psychotic and violent and crazy. It's like, guys, scale that back a little bit. And it's funny because I saw Ricochet's comments about how, like, WWE is pricing families out, which is another reason I hate WWE right now because it's supposed to be family entertainment. And Ricochet said, it's like, well, we're priced for families. You can bring your family. I'm like, okay, I like that, but I've seen the content on your show. It is not for families. There's a lot of cursing and a lot of really violent stuff that kids probably shouldn't be seeing. So you find yourself in this weird bind where it's like you have the one show that's a little bit more family friendly but has priced families out of it. And then you have the other show that's priced for families but has content that is not. And it's just, what a tangled web we weave. But I'll say this. I think that if I had to pick a match of the year so far, for me personally, I thought the Outrunners and FTR had a match on Collision a while back before All In that I thought was like, this is everything I want in professional wrestling in this one match. You have entertaining faces that I want to root for. You have heels that I hate and want to see lose. You had blood and guts. You had exciting drama. You had entertainment and theatricality. You had a little bit of everything. And I'm like, this match right here is what I want. Like this match right here. Now I'm not saying every match needs to be that. I'm saying, like, generally speaking, when you're doing big matches on TV or on pay-per-views, I would prefer for them to look like this instead of the kind of formulaic big move fest that a lot of matches are these days. And again, and I guess this is where I'll go into Kyle Fletcher, because Stevie Richards had brought him up and said that on his podcast, and said that, like, Kyle Fletcher should probably go to NXT to learn how to work. And I think that's half right. NXT is not the place to go because a lot of the problems I see in AEW, I see in WWE as well, where it's in AEW, they do big move, big move, big move, big move, big move, big move, and then they run out of moves and do whatever flat finish they come up with. In WWE, it's finisher, 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 finisher until finisher number 12 wins. It's the same thing. It's just, I guess AEW is more creative with their big spots, but they're still ruining big spots. And but the general sentiment about Kyle Fletcher, I think, is accurate because He's a guy that AEW clearly wants to push, clearly wants to make a star out of. They're giving him the main event spot at the pay-per-view. And I've watched him work, and I'm like, what are his moves? Like, what are his mannerisms? Like, what's his finisher? I don't know, because every match I see him in, like, everybody kicks out of his moves, so like nothing sticks, nothing lands, and nothing gets over. And I think he carries himself well for a young guy. He carries himself well on the stick and everything. He's working on his look and things. He's developing. He's growing. But I watch his matches, and it's like it's in one ear and out the other, because it's just the same shit, where it's like everybody kicks out of his stuff. And I think a WWE equivalent of that would be like a Carmelo Hayes or Andrade, who's not in WWE anymore, where everybody tells me they're great, and it's like they're generic athletic guys who just do the big move, then do whatever the finish is. There's nothing special about them. There's nothing that stands out, nothing that connects with the audience. It's just doing a bunch of moves. And if Kyle Fletcher's going to be a main event player, he's going to have to learn how to, like, I don't know, have an 8-minute match where he dominates some guys and gets a move over. That's a start. It's better than nothing. And Stevie Richards, like, his general idea, I think, yes, Kyle Fletcher, and it's not just Kyle Fletcher. I just gave other examples. It's an industry-wide problem where moves don't mean anything anymore, and every match is just do a bunch of moves, and it's obnoxious. And every match, you can't have every match. Like, look, I like a good Flair Steamboat match as much as the next guy. I do not want an entire card of Flair Steamboat matches. You need those friggin' like filler matches. And it's funny, I mentioned Stevie. When I was driving back from Las Vegas to Maryland, in the hotel rooms, I watched the Stevie Night Heat 8-hour compilation that's on YouTube. And I'd never seen it before, because I stopped watching Sunday Night Heat pretty much after SmackDown showed up, because it's like once SmackDown showed up, Sunday Night Heat kind of became superfluous. But I remember reading about the Stevie Night Heat stuff and hearing that it was like the reason to tune in. So going and watching it, I was kind of like, he worked a lot of the same people. I don't think I've watched so many Maven matches in my entire life. I worked Goldust a lot. He worked Val Venus a lot. He worked the Hardy Boys a lot. And I'm looking at this like, he did spots that were funny. He did spots that were memorable. He did things that elevated his character, that enhanced his character, and developed him for something with this whole Stevie Night Heat thing that he was doing. It was funny. It was entertaining. It made the matches memorable. He did that thing where he was Val's tag team partner, and they both came out in towels, and then he said, I forgot my trunks. So he had to go run to the back and get trunks. And I'm like, we need stuff like that. We need stuff like that. Guys who, like, I don't need to go out there and have a 15 to 20 or 30-minute barn burner. I need to create something that sticks in people's minds. And matches like that should be on the big shows, and they should be on the pay-per-views, if nothing else, for like a bit of fluff in between all the other big matches, because every match can't be a big match. It's not sustainable. Other great examples of that, I think the Outrunners, even though I put over their match with FTR, I think they can be an entertaining presence in a filler match if you want. Harley Cameron, I think, is very entertaining, could be put in filler matches. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, his whole career was based on matches like that, where he just came out and did his shtick and made people happy, and that was it. And then you would get breaks in between the bigger matches that people were actually there to see. This is not rocket science. I don't know why people like are overthinking this and thinking star ratings. Everybody has to go out there and steal the show. And I'm like, no, you don't. You just got to make your moments count. How many of the early WrestleManias were filled with matches where it's just a guy squashing somebody? And that's fine. It's fine. The streak started because Undertaker destroyed Jimmy Snuka, and it was memorable. It was memorable, and it helped establish Undertaker's character as dominant. It achieved something, and it put him on the biggest stage in front of a big audience to accomplish that goal. It wasn't, the match of the night. It wasn't, a 5-star match, but it got the job done, and it laid a foundation for Undertaker. I think it's safe to say Undertaker had a pretty good career with that kind of mindset. I don't know, call me crazy, but I think I have ranted and raved long enough. So I think we can wrap this video up. Finally, thank God, we can move past it. And again, hopefully in the following weeks, we can go back to having some fun. But I am back here on YouTube. Kind of missed it a little bit, but again, hopefully we can have more fun moving forward. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching my complete insanity, and I will see you all later.